All right, everybody. I want to do a little bit of talk about UFOs. Now, UFOs have been in the news a bit lately because the government's been putting out some declassified information. In particular, the military has come out and been more open in admitting that they do have sightings of these phenomenon. They call them UAPs. We call them UFOs, but they call them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And so they're talking about how they are a real thing. They don't have an explanation for some of it, and it's really taken a much bigger part of the news in the last few months as well. But specifically, I want to address a couple of particular videos talking about them that have come up more recently. The first one is I want to talk about Richard Barris's sighting. Richard Barris is a pollster and a YouTuber that is, I think he currently lives in North Carolina, but he used to live in Gainesville, Florida. And he was on with Eric Hunley just a week or two ago and talked about an experience that he had back in 2016 near Gainesville, and seeing this gigantic UFO, this unexplained craft that he and his wife saw on their way home from dinner at a restaurant. So Richard identifies himself as he calls himself, I think he said in the video, he would not call himself an evangelical, but he'd call himself a Protestant. So he's got some level of being a believer, and that's kind of what I want to address is at least my take, and I'm not going to argue with Richard on anything, but I also want to talk about another video that is a little bit more private. You can see it, but it's going to cost you, and that would be I follow Viva Barnes on their locals page, Viva Fry and Robert Barnes, and really like locals. Viva and Barnes are the only ones that I pay for right now, but Barnes did a live stream. At the time of this recording, it was last night. He did a live stream and just talked about a bunch of different things, and he brought up this UFO sighting by Barris, and just kind of an off-the-cuff comment. Barnes, I'm not sure where he comes from. He does a occasional ask me anything, and I've thrown out the question on their locals page that just wondering where he is, religiously, I guess would be the way to put it, I guess. But he talks about growing up as an independent Baptist in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and being he's clearly very familiar with the Christian worldview and the way Christians think and whatnot, and also, I don't know where he is today, but he's certainly very respectful of the Christian worldview and Christians in general. So, but he had a comment that I also am kind of wanting to address. Now, starting with Barris. Barris is the one you're going to be able to find on YouTube. If you look up Eric Hunley, I think it's ERIC, and then HUNLEY. And he's kind of got a neat show. He interviews some really fascinating people on YouTube, but he's also on. I think he posts a lot of his stuff on Rumble, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he has a locals page. I don't pay or subscribe to Eric on locals, but definitely a really very, very interesting show that Eric does. And he interviewed, like I said, Richard Barris, who described this experience he had seeing a UFO, this craft, and I want to say up front. I think I completely believe Barris as far as his experience goes. I believe he did see something. I do believe it was unexplained. I believe everything that he says. That how it changed his life. It changed how he looks at the sky. I no question whatsoever. Not questioning his experience. I think it was real and legitimate stuff. Where I might have a little bit of a disagreement is, and he doesn't even really get that deep into it, but what did he see? What exactly is it? But then back on the Barnes side, Barnes Barnes just kind of threw out that he actually kind of addressed UFOs from his understanding of not necessarily Christian worldview, but a theological worldview, the view that the world was created by God, a little bit more generic theological worldview. And Barnes threw out, and I think this is probably a very, very typical point of view, but threw out the question: why would God make this vast, immense universe that's so big that we as human beings will never even see it all from Earth, much less be able to travel? Why would he do all that if he wasn't going to make life elsewhere within the universe? And I just want to share from my own Christian worldview, from a biblical perspective, why I disagree with that perspective and why I don't think that there is life elsewhere, not physical life anyway, elsewhere in the universe. And that's really the heart of the matter. What am I, 6 minutes in and stuff, and that's the heart of the matter I want to get to, is what are these UFOs? What do I think they are? Where do they come from? And just using these two other videos as a backdrop, or kind of a jumping off point on why I bring it up. So, and also why I can understand why people who profess to be Christians or are sympathetic to a Christian worldview, why they might have a different point of view, but yet I still disagree with it. Now, as to what is it, I don't know. I really don't, and I'm definitely not gonna say with any kind of certainty that it's absolutely this, that, or the other thing. UFOs, there's different options. They could be aliens. Okay, I don't believe they are, but it could be life from other planets. Another option is that and I think this is kind of why the military and the government says that they didn't talk about this until recently, but another option is that it's something that a foreign adversary has developed, a technology that's beyond what we have, and quite frankly it scares the pants off of them that we might be looking at, not necessarily China or Russia, but that would be our leading suspects, that maybe they've figured out a way to develop some astonishing technology that is many generations more advanced than what we have. And I say that's possible. I don't necessarily believe that's the option either, but I think it's more possible than off-world kind of life, but or at least physical life from other planets. Another option I've heard thrown about is kind of more, I guess I'm a little bit more sympathetic to, would be that it is in fact U.S. made technology, that these are highly secret programs that skunk works kind of thing, and the government just isn't ready yet to announce to the world what they've got. And because I do think it's interesting, whether it's our government or a foreign government, it is interesting that these things do seem to be seen most around military bases and military exercise areas. And there's always seems to be a military connection. There's an Air Force base nearby, or a naval training zone, or there's always it seems to be some military connection around them. It's not like they're showing up over St. Louis or Boston or whatever. Maybe they do, but it's not like the majority of these sightings are not in these areas. They're around military places. Gainesville, Florida's got a big Air Force base, and from what I've been gathering from the military sightings that they will talk about, the two most common places they're seeing them are off the coast of San Diego and off the coast of Virginia, and those are both naval practice areas. So I definitely think there's some kind of connection there of them being military. But I'm open to the fact that it could be none of the above on those two. And if it was to be none of the above, if it is alien life, and this is where I'm going to be clear, I'm not discounting alien, but I don't think of alien in terms of what you might be thinking of as alien. I'm not thinking of Alien as a guy who grew up watching Star Wars and Star Trek and E.T. and whatnot. I'm not thinking little green men or gray men or whatever that live on other planets somewhere in another galaxy. If they're not human, then my worldview tells me that they're probably spiritual, and they're probably not the good kind of spiritual, and their sole purpose will be to deceive. So I think outside of a natural man-made explanation, that's where I would go with it. Now, addressing this comment or this view that why would God make such an immense, massive universe that's so huge, and with galaxies so hundreds of thousands of light years away, that we can barely see. They show up as a speck on our best telescopes, and that's why would he make that? There's planets in those galaxies we'll never ever get to see. Why would he do that? If he didn't put some kind of life there. Well, I think that can be explained from a biblical worldview. And first and foremost, I believe that all of creation, whether it be right here on Earth from the microscopic level all the way out to the entire universe, as the Bible says, it was all made for his glory. And that he didn't necessarily make it for us, not directly. Some of it is made for his own pleasure. And then as far as we go, he made it so vast for no other reason, just to demonstrate his power and his immensity. That as big as the universe is, if he created it, he's bigger, and he has more power than anything that we can see in our universe. And it really is to put the fear of God into people, that he's that big. So no, I don't necessarily believe that he would have to, that it would require him to put life in other galaxies and other planets to make theological sense. But that's kind of where I'm at with this UFO thing, and I think that to be consistent with a biblical worldview, it really does require that it either be some kind of man-made explanation what these things are, or they're spiritual. They're quite frankly, they're demonic, and I'm really warming to that a lot. As more time goes by, that especially as crazy as the world's been in the last year or two, I think that's kind of the direction that I'm going to end up being going down. I'm going to end up going down that direction on explaining what these things are. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if in coming years, or even months, but in coming years, more likely that this doesn't become a bigger issue, and maybe there's some kind of contact made, some alien-looking beings stepping off these craft and not just showing up and hovering over cities or Air Force bases or airports or cornfields or whatever, that they might actually get out and start talking to people, and it probably will culminate on Rachel Maddow sitting across a table from some little green guy or gray guy, on MSNBCIA. I don't know. So that's my thought. But anyway, I want to talk about UFOs. I got a couple other video ideas to do, but check out the Eric Hunley interview with Richard Barris. It really is an interesting story about, Barris kind of comes out of his shell. He says he saw this thing back in 2016 and just didn't want to talk about it for quite a while, just because he didn't want to deal with the mockery and some of the negative side of telling the story. But now that the reports are coming out and the military's speaking up a little bit more, and the government speaking up a little bit more, he felt a little bit more open to come out and talk about his experience. So check that out. And if I post this on YouTube, which I imagine I probably will, I'll find it and I'll make it easy to share, either link in the description or one of those little boxes up in the corner here or something. if I can figure out how to make those little boxes. I don't know. We'll see here. I'll figure it out. By the time you see us, you'll know what I did. But and then for the bearish side of things, he talks about it a little bit in public on Viva and Barnes streams, which are on the two are on together on Sunday evenings on YouTube, and then they usually have what they call a sidebar that's usually really enjoyable to watch, and those are on Wednesdays. And then, like I said, it's the only locals page that I pay money to see, and I feel like I'm getting my money's worth. I enjoy it. So that's at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and you'll see me on there. I'm under my real name, and if you see a post that looks like it's for me, it probably is for me. But that was July 22nd. Robert Barnes did a locals only live stream, and it was just kind of a throwaway comment. It's a 90-minute thing. I don't even know where within that 90 minutes it came up, but it's on there. So two different things, and that's what I'm specifically responding to, but really wanted to be more generalized as well, just kind of what's my take on UFOs. But so at this point I'm just rambling, so I'm going to let you go, and I'll be back another time with another video. Hey, so to make a long story even longer, I totally forgot to even bring up the single biggest theological reason why I don't believe in sentient physical alien life, why I don't believe that other planets have beings that are as sophisticated as we are, as far as conscience and ability to reason, that we're not going to find anything like human beings on, and I don't mean we're not going to find human beings, but anything like human beings, anything like our understanding of alien life, like we'd see on, in science fiction, you're not going to find it anywhere in the universe outside of Earth, and it comes down to this: it's the sin problem. Theologically speaking, sin is the single biggest reason why there can't be life on other planets, at least not sentient, sophisticated life like ours. Now, are there like bugs and rodents and toads and stuff on other planets, or something like them? Yeah, maybe, but nothing that would be sophisticated enough to be able to, create tools and craft and travel and intergalactic travel or anything like that. Nothing is going to be able to do math and to reason and to think and to communicate like we do. I just don't believe in it, and sin is the big problem. And the reason why sin is a problem is because, under the Christian worldview, I believe that God made two different classes of beings, as created beings, that are sophisticated and able to think and reason and whatnot. And those are human beings and angels, or spirit beings. And so the thing with the spirit beings is each and every one of them has acted on their own volition, and those that have fallen, those who have sinned, each individually did so of their own accord. That they were created perfect, they were created good, and that if they fell by their own choices. And there's no redemption for them. There's no solution for them. Their judgment is coming. We, on the other hand, the other class of being would be human beings. And God didn't directly make all of us. He created the first two human beings, Adam and Eve. He created Adam, and then from Adam created Eve out of Adam. And they were created without sin. They began life without sin, and they chose to sin. But every human being that has lived after them has lived under sin as a consequence of them. And we call that federal headship, that they sinned and that we sinned through them. We inherited their sin nature, that we were born into a sinful state. And that is why we have a Savior. It's because not all of us, among many other reasons. Ultimately it was God's decision that, he just decided to do this, and that's, who are we to question him? But I firmly believe, and I think the case can be made, that the reason why God became a man in Jesus Christ and came down and bore our sin on himself and took the punishment we deserve is because we were born into sin, that we didn't start off perfect and sinless and then choose to sin like the angels did. And so that raises a problem for alien life. Like, where are they on that spectrum if hypothetically they existed? It's not just the earth that's under the curse of sin. And the consequences of the fall. The entire universe groans with the consequence of sin, and just the laws of physics are completely different now because of sin. That we have things like the second law of thermodynamics, and that things tend towards disintegration and loss of energy and heat loss and from order to chaos. That's a consequence of sin, and that applies to the entire universe, not just the Earth, not just our solar system, not just our galaxy, but the entire universe, all the way to the edge. And so any beings that live anywhere in the universe would be living under the consequence of Adam's sin. And how do you theologically deal with that? How would you wrap your head around the fact that death on a distant galaxy, a distant planet in a distant galaxy, death happens there because of one man's sin on Earth? That it just wouldn't make any sense. And theologically speaking, I just don't see any room for alien life like that. They can't be sinless, because they're going to end up still living under the consequences of sin, regardless of being their own sinless nature. Which just that just doesn't compute with me, doesn't calculate. Now, if they're sinful, okay, well, what if they sin too? What if they're like us? One sinned and then they all inherited sin from them. Well, then you still have a problem, because God had one son. Jesus is God's only son, and that Jesus became a man and died for us as humans. He didn't become a little gray man to die for little gray men, and he lived only once and he died only once, and he doesn't I want to say reincarnate, but he doesn't like become a different being to cover for all the different types of beings that could exist in the universe, and it doesn't work. It doesn't. In fact, we know that Jesus became a man, but he's still a man, that he was resurrected on the third day, and at the Pentecost, 40 days after Pentecost was the giving of the Holy Spirit, but 40 days after his resurrection, he ascended into heaven, and he's remained there ever since, and he's still a man to this day, and he will return as a man, but also as God. He's the fully man and fully God. But so that's like my big failure. I did that big long video and I missed the most important thing, and that's the sin problem. Aliens, it theologically doesn't work. If they're capable of sentient thought, they're capable of, I hate the term free will because I'm not that kind of believer. I'm more of a traditional Calvinist when it comes to understanding of sin and salvation. But you know what I mean when I say free will. People, if they have they have agency. That'd be a better way to put it. Beings with agency. They either got to be sinless, but still live under the penalty of sin, the consequence of sin, the fall because of sin, or they're sinless. And neither one of those options really works in the end. So that's ultimately why I don't believe in the traditional sci-fi kind of understanding of aliens and whatever these craft are that people are seeing. I think they could be demonic. I think demons could be deceiving people by manifesting what looks like alien craft. That's certainly possible, and that's if they're not man-made. But I certainly don't believe that these are beings from a distant galaxy or a distant planet. So that's where I'm at. And I apologize for having a big long video and now having to make it look like about 9 minutes longer because I missed the mark on the first time. But that's it. That's the big problem. It's theologically, it really doesn't work. And you can fault me for being dedicated to my Christian worldview, and I see it through and through from beginning to end as the revealed Word of God and as the truth. That's where I'm at. But within that worldview, there's just not room for sentient, physical, alien life.